Hello, I'm going to be talking to you today about igniting a passion for construction and STEM in the next generation. I'm going to set the scene. I'm going to explain what I mean by igniting the passion for the next generation. I'm going to show you how we can do that by serving as cheerleaders for the construction industry. And I'm going to go across some misconceptions and barriers that I've encountered through my journey and show you how we can work about overcoming them to maybe give you some inspiration about how you too can engage with the next generation. So my name is Anne O'Caffer and I'm a Chartered Construction Manager. I'm a construction planner based in Central Scotland and I'm a Vice Chair for the CIOB Northern Scotland Hub, and I'm an award-winning STEM ambassador as well. So, setting the scene. Children make up their minds as early as 5 years old when it comes to what job role they want to do in their future. Now, we can make a difference to that by adding to children's science capital, and that is basically touch points of how we can go into schools or youth groups, maybe brownies or scouts, something like that. We can increase their science capital by having these touch points. Not every child will have people in their family that works in STEM roles or construction roles. So by going into schools and having those touch points, we can increase their science capital. And by that, it means that from all those little touch points, then they understand that these jobs are available, but they're also available to them. So by doing this, we're being role models, we're being visible, we're showing people what opportunities are out there in the industry. I don't know about you, but I went to school not really knowing about jobs in construction, and even when I entered the industry, there was lots and lots of job roles that I didn't even know about. So by getting out there and being visible is really, really important. Just recently, the BBC Bite Size has released a survey whereby they talk about building trades has entered the top 10 jobs that teens currently want, and engineering is at top 2. Building trades is something that's just recently came into the top 10, and architecture has actually departed from the top 10 recently too. So this is really important because it shows that people, the next generation, are looking at building trades as being something that they want to get involved in. So I think it's really important, especially in the house building industry, that we need lots of trades. We need lots of the skills that are brought through. So we need to encourage that. It's encouraging to see it, but we certainly want to nurture that and encourage it more so that people know what all the building trades are. Lots of people just think of building trades as, the bricklayer, the joiner. So we want to make sure that people know what all of the different options are. And part of that is education of parents and teachers, schools, careers advisors. We need to get that word out to them so that they understand the viability of a career in construction. For so long, a career in construction has been seen as, something you do if you can't do anything else. And that's not the case. So many clever people in construction, so many great opportunities to make money, to be happy, and to have actually really rewarding jobs. Now, part of the BBC Bite Size survey that came out recently, 27% of children, which was the top thing that was identified, was happiness when they were asked about what was important for them in a job when they grew up, and happiness was the top one. Number 2 was feeling good about what you do, and third was money, getting a good job. Now, I think the construction industry brings all of those things as an opportunity. So again, it's great to try and tie that in and show them how they can have those things by working in our industry. It also helps them to gain a different perspective because we can offer different perspectives. All of us are different. We've got different experiences and different job roles, different day-to-days. So sharing those experiences are super important in getting the word out there to the next generation. So the way that I suggest we do this is serving as construction cheerleaders. And this is about being the visible role model that I spoke about before. And we can do that in a number of different ways. Just by sharing our experiences, we can get the word out there. We can tell our different stories. Now, it's really good to tell your story as is your story. It's really powerful for children and young people to see people like them coming from backgrounds like them, having different journeys, having different career pathways and different job roles. And actually the way that you get to that job as well, because a lot of the time we're led to believe that it's a straight single path. You go to school, you go to uni, you get the job. And for construction, it's very rarely like that. Many of us have lots of different pathways. Representation in terms of inclusion, again, sharing your stories, representing, and these things are really important. Show the next generation that it is for them. Again, when we have limited visible role models, people don't see themselves in that role, and it's very important that we can show them that it is actually for them. I mentioned diverse experiences as well, because we all have them. We've all had good and bad, but we've all have different ways of doing things as well, and I think it's really good for people to see how diverse the construction industry is, how many different job roles. The way that you can get involved with doing this, you can sign up as a STEM ambassador. Your companies may have programs through your social benefits, your community benefits, or your social impact teams that already do these types of things. But you can actually sign up via STEM ambassadors as well and be and have your time counted for, and you can do that across organisations as well. And many of the construction institutes also do this. There's a thing also called Go Construct STEM Ambassadors through CITB. So then it counts all your hours together. So again, it makes it easy for reporting purposes across big businesses as well. You can also serve as construction cheerleaders on social media just by sharing your day-to-day, taking photos, videos of what you're doing. You'd be surprised at how interesting your day-to-day can be to other people when you do it every day. So maybe it doesn't seem all that interesting to you, but to other people, and to certainly the next generation, it is interesting to them, but also gives them a little bit of a flavour about what a day in the life of your job may look like. So the way I approach a session, if I'm talking with the next generation, these are some of the things that I would possibly use, not all of them all of the time, but certainly, definitely some of them. So I like to talk about the people in our industry, and the amounts of different people that you get to meet, the people that you get to work with, how we get to work in teams, how we get to have opportunities to work on our own, and how actually the opportunities that are there are wide, are varied. There may be opportunities for international work. There's opportunities for digital skills. There's opportunities for hands-on. The opportunities between indoors and outdoors. Really, there's something for every personality in the construction industry, and I think opening that conversation with the next generation really lets them see what opportunities may be suitable for them. One thing that I really have found connects with the young people is that the legacy of what we build in the construction industry, we literally change the world every single day with what we do. And that's really powerful. And a lot of people don't necessarily always link the construction industry with the legacy that we leave, with the buildings that we make, with the better buildings that we make, and the communities, the betterment that we create in the communities that we work within. So I think trying to make those links is really, really powerful as well. So if you're talking about your project, don't just talk about it in terms of the construction site, talk about it in terms of the legacy that it leaves, and how it improves the community and the people within that community, for having better buildings to live within, to work within, to play within. The next generation are also very keen on solving the problems of the world. We have really big problems coming up in terms of the climate change, as one example of huge problems that we need to solve and that we're trying to solve with the construction industry every day. And I also think if we speak to people about how they can contribute to solving these problems by a career in the construction industry, again, it could be a really powerful motivator for people to come and join us to help solve those problems. Now, make any talks that you do relatable to the group that you're speaking to. So, for example, if you're speaking to maybe a primary school aged class, you want to talk in terms that they will understand. It's okay to speak about technical terms, but try and explain them to them. Children are very, very capable of understanding quite a lot of what we say, and also make it relatable in terms of location. So if you're talking about a bridge, for example, and you're talking to a school in Edinburgh, you may want to pick out the Forth Bridge or the Queensferry crossing or something, because it's something they will be able to relate back to, and it gives them a bit of local knowledge. Plus, it's something that it's quite easy for them to maybe go and do follow-up conversations with as well in their local area. Talk about available routes into construction. So when I'm talking about that, what I mean is apprenticeship routes, graduate apprenticeship routes, the university route, learning on the job. Talk about your experience and what you did. Talk about your career path, and possibly point out other routes that may be available to people. Again, this is really important when you're talking to groups of especially younger children, because sometimes they don't see that university is maybe an option for them, or that apprenticeships is an option for them because they're expected to go to university. Part of the BBC Bite Size survey was also 85% of children felt that their background was very dependent on whether they were successful. So again, by showing that there's different routes available to people, it allows them to see that, one, it's for them, and two, it's accessible to them. You can use props, maybe bricks or paper. Do activities with that. I sometimes use ducks, as you'll have seen in my front photo. So lots of different props. You can be really creative, be really inventive, and like with activities as well, you can be really inventive by showing them what you do. I talk to the children about what I do as a construction planner, talking in terms of a to-do list for construction site at a very basic level, and then when I'm talking to older groups, maybe talking about the data that I use and things like that. So again, it's making it relatable, making it age appropriate, and use photos and videos as well of what you do on the job, to show them what it is that you do. So some of the misconceptions and barriers. Now, we all have a list that we know. I'm going to talk about a couple of mine and give a couple of examples just to highlight the issues that I've come across. One of them being maths anxiety. So I was held back from the construction industry for a long time because I felt like my maths ability wasn't that great. Struggled with the maths anxiety, but then I overcome that. And I think when we're talking about misconceptions and barriers, again, when you're talking to the next generation, it's absolutely okay to address them, to talk about them, talk about your experience, being that visible role model and representation of all the things that make you you. There will be all of those things in the classroom, all of those different types of people as well. So I think being honest about your experiences is really helpful and useful, and is really good for showing inclusion as well. It helps people to understand how they can overcome, share how you've overcome things, share how your companies were inclusive, or perhaps where there was challenges as well. It's okay to talk about barriers. I think, we need to do that in order to help people understand how they can overcome things. One of the huge factors that I've found in a lot of the barriers that I've overcome, so maths anxiety being one of them, is that language really matters. We talk about, so in terms of maths anxiety, we say things like, well, I didn't use maths after I left school and I've done okay. And we don't mean any harm by using phrases like that, but what we're actually doing is reinforcing negative behaviour. So we're saying actually it's okay not to try after a certain point. If you're really struggling with something, don't try. So try and use positive language, like, well, I've not been great at maths, but I tried and I got better at it, and now I'm able to use things in my job. And actually we use it so much more than what we think. We use phrases like you can't be what you can't see. And again, while it's well-meaning, and visible representation is hugely important, again, we feel like by using that language, we're putting a barrier in place for people. We're telling them that if you can't see representation, then you can't do that. and actually that's not really helpful. We're just adding another barrier. So try and use positive language, and support people or point them in directions of support. So the construction industry has lots of these sort of initiatives going where they can seek support. A lot of construction industry bodies will have places where people can get support as well, and knowledge. These things are getting more and more widespread as we go through. And the final thing is just to say, if you'd like to know more about these types of things, I'm more than happy for people to connect with me on LinkedIn if they feel that that is something they would like to do. Thank you.
And thank you very much for joining us. There was a lot of very useful and helpful insight to be taken away from that presentation. Going back to the misconceptions, in particular the misconception that I experienced when I was growing up, that, you know, you perhaps if you struggled with studies at school, or if you didn't want to study, it was fine because you could go into construction. Obviously, this is completely not the case, and luckily this is an aspect that has changed and progressed significantly, since I was growing up as a teenager. What do you think has been the main reason for this progression?
I think in my experience, education of parents and teachers, understanding that actually construction is a really great opportunity. It's a really great opportunity to make decent money, and I think that it probably wasn't there at some point, but also just that it's quite technical now as well, so it's seen in a different light. It's we're solving problems that the world has, and I think actually with really unfortunate issues like Grenfell and things coming about, people are much more aware of the construction industry as a bigger entity, as as an important role in the community, whereas and not to say it wasn't before, but I just feel like people felt that builders were just there, bricks, and people see it as bricks, chucking up houses, and as they say. But I think the education around what it actually means to be in the construction industry, all the different types of job roles that are a lot, again, being created because the industry is getting much more technical. So I think the education around that, the education of teachers and parents, and just the industry being much more visible as well, certainly in the public eye, has played a big role in that.
And when it comes to the growing interest among youngsters, you mentioned, for example, that engineering has entered into the top 10 career choices for children. What would you say has been the main driving force for this positive change?
I think it's visibility. Social media has got a big part to play in that. We see people talking about their job roles on social media, and I think that visibility, the representation, and people understanding that it is for everybody, and that there are all these wonderful opportunities that we can do. But also I think with topics like climate change, and we're talking about retrofitting buildings and things like that, the change and the impact that we can have as an industry, I think, really plays a big part in that as well. So the education of that.
Well, thank you very much for being an ambassador for promoting this positive change and encouraging more youngsters into the construction industry. And thank you for joining us again at Show Home Live.
You're very welcome, Joseph. Thank you for inviting me.